Think of great rugby nations, you think of New Zealand, you think of Australia, Wales, England, Ireland, but the USA does not come straight to mind. But the game is growing in the USA. And on this video, we're going to be looking at how it is growing. And I managed to have a chat with Rob Hammerschmidt, who is a development officer for rugby in the USA. And I asked him a few questions to explain what was happening with rugby in the US. So if you do enjoy, subscribe, like and comment and get involved with the video. So the first question I had to ask him was, could he explain how rugby was in the US and what were the major challenges it was facing?
I'd say in the States that there are a couple of big challenges that rugby has to tackle moving forward. At the top level, one of them is the national team. USA Rugby started a for-profit arm to try to raise money for the sport and to grow the sport. That arm had to declare bankruptcy this past year. They took some chances on bringing a couple internationals here, and they, including the Rugby Sevens, and they lost money on the Rugby Sevens, and so it's struggling. And without that money, it's going to be hard to grow the sport, both for the national team as well as development of youth rugby. I found the question interesting because as I thought about it in preparation for today, one of the things that dawned on me is the same answers that USA Rugby struggles with, other nations struggle with, but to a wholly different set of questions. So the answer is, where do you spend your money? Because rugby is just not as commercially viable and thus revenue generating as soccer, football, as they call in UK. And therefore, how do you spend your precious resources? Do you spend them on youth development so that in USA's case, you're developing the youth players of the future, and those hopefully pay dividends 10, 15, 20 years down the road so that those players encourage their children to play rugby. That's how it's been with me and a lot of my mates. I started playing, really got into it, and now my son's playing in college. Or do you spend that money on the top level team to give them the proper nutrition, provide them with the proper resources to advance and become better and improve their results? New Zealand's challenged the same way. Where do they spend their resources? Do they try to spend those resources to keep players in New Zealand so they can offer them competitive contracts with the likes of French clubs and the Pro 14 clubs in the UK? Or do you spend it on youth development to continue to grow the game? So that's one of the big challenges. The USA has some really tough ones ahead of it in regards to answering those challenges and addressing them and trying to improve the results in the world standing. So Major League Rugby's been going pretty well. It's actually not the first time that the United States has had a professional rugby league within our borders. The first one was called Pro Rugby. It's actually a joint effort with USA Rugby that actually folded after a season, largely due to financial and contract disputes. I think they probably try to roll it out too fast. But Major League Rugby is doing well. It's actually a joint partnership between Major League Rugby itself, of which the clubs have a shared interest and ownership stake in Major League Rugby, and Major League Rugby has the same in those clubs as well. And so the last year, the first season, inaugural season, was won by the Seawolves out of Seattle. There's 7 teams. And actually, they're looking to add 9 teams, and a new one in Ontario, New York are going to be added, and then potentially Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, and Boston as potential other places for it. And then there's been talks of Chicago, but I don't know how serious those are. The brand of rugby is good. Some of the players that are in our USA pool are playing in Major League Rugby. That's good. The pay is not probably where it needs to be to really recruit other players from past international players, or perhaps a little over the hill, that can offer their experience and excitement to the United States brand of rugby. There is a pretty strong connection between some of those top level collegiate programs and Major League Rugby. Some of the kids are being recruited from those programs into Major League Rugby, and for those kids, it's pretty exciting to be able to get paid to play rugby. But again, the salary's not where it needs to be in order to be competitive. Probably typical with the MLS, the soccer in the United States, that guys that play well will get recruited to go play overseas. I think that's the case with, for example, A.J. McKinty, who's the U.S. fly half. But there are opportunities for top-level collegiate players to actually go and play in Major League Rugby. So it's exciting to see. I hope it grows and continues to grow, and then they make positive developments both financially and on the pitch. Here to go until Japan in the 2019 World Cup. What are the USA's chances? Well, as an American rugby fan and a supporter of the USA Rugby, generally I've been disappointed with the USA showing. They've had a few results that showed a bit of encouragement, but they really haven't had that breakthrough tournament like Japan had last go round. They haven't really exceeded an expectation at any time. They occasionally beat teams they're supposed to beat, and sometimes they don't even do that, and it's a bit frustrating from that standpoint. I don't think this is going to be any different in 2019. You can see I have a collection of rugby ties. You can't quite make them out, but I have all the World Cup ties, and I always look forward to the World Cup. But for me, it generally has been a disappointment, and I suspect it'll be the same way here in 2019. The group they're in is just tough for a second-tier nation. England, France, Argentina are top-level teams. They're going to be difficult to beat. Tonga, that's the one I should suspect the U.S. should win. But sometimes they don't play up to their ability, and they even lose the ones they're expected to win. To go into out of group play and go into the tournament play, they'd have to beat one of those top-level teams. I just don't know that I see that happening. The RGs are good, very good. They have good set-piece play, and that's where the United States lacks both depth in the player pool as well as skill. So it's going to be tough for them to win at this point of scrum. France, while on their day, can implode. The U.S. won't put enough pressure on them for, at least I can see, for them to actually do that. Wales can do it. Ireland can do it. England can do it. Your top-level teams, New Zealand can do it. They can cause France to implode, but I just don't see the United States being able to apply the defensive pressure for the U.S. to get a victory out of that one. So one victory is the expectation, but generally, after watching all the USA matches, I look to enjoy the experience of the other teams after the group play.